Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Santiago, and I'm here today to talk to you about being a professional artist and also a little about my work. This image here is a picture of my studio, and at the end of my slideshow, I'll take you on a tour around my messy studio. Mostly I paint about things that are personal to me. So at this point in my life, I'm a wife, I'm a mother of two young children, and a part-time caregiver to 90-plus-year-old grandparents in poor health. I also teach. I have a profession. I'm an associate professor at the College of William and Mary, where I teach drawing, figure drawing, color theory, and design. So let me talk to you a little bit about my work. Like I said, most of them are autobiographical, and this one was made about the time when I was getting married, and it's clearly a birthday scene. But there's layers to this storyline. So the first story we see is the birthday scene, the birthday party, and then there's a deeper narrative here about marriage and the initiation rites that are put on women in terms of marriage and this expectation in our society. So I wanted to make the protagonist in this one a little bit ambivalent or unsure about the big tiered cake there, which is loosely a nod to tiered wedding cake. And the idea of putting a baby in or out of a bag, that gift that she's receiving is, the ambivalence or maybe being unsure about wanting to have a family or wanting to get married, these sort of expectations that are often put on women in our society. I also put these candles up here over the map, the world map, as sort of burning trajectories. So potential paths that this protagonist might take should she decide to move forward with this venture. Down at the bottom is an open bag, and we can see something in it, but we can't quite see it. And so that bag symbolizes things yet to come, things unseen, right? Surprises or gifts. And while I wasn't ambivalent about whether or not I wanted a family and whether or not I wanted to marry the person I was with, I think that there's a lot of societal pressure on women to move in that route. And I saw friends not want to do that and not want to follow that, and the blowback they got from society. This is also about marriage and family and female rites of passage in our society. So the figure is moving from one space on the right, which is lit by natural light, a cooler light, and moving into an interior space lit by incandescent or more yellow lighting. Again, it's a birthday cake. We're guessing because of the gifts and things around, but also a tiered cake, not unlike a wedding cake. The balloons sit over her womb as if, a substitute or symbolizing a pregnant belly. So again, this is a thinly veiled attempt to disguise maybe deeper meaning about female rites of passage, particularly in the areas of marriage and family. In this image, I was thinking a lot about overindulgence and how when one indulges too much, they become immobilized or paralyzed. Like too much of a good thing can turn bad. So I was thinking about that in terms of sweets and food, but maybe also alluding to consumption of other things like video games, TV, social media, that kind of thing. But there was also another narrative happening here. So at about this time when I was making this image, and you can see here the progression of this image. On the left, I took in progress shots, and you can see how the image changes. As I was making this images, I was thinking about some miscarriages that I had and birthdays that were never going to be celebrated. So you can see I take things out and put things in and change the image around, play with the colors until I get sort of this final state. And this was a bigger series of 3 called Indulgence 1, 2, and 3. I also like to paint still lives. So with making this indulgence series, I started to think, and the series about marriage, I started to think a lot about cake, and cake being a marker of some of life's major milestones: baby showers, weddings, birthdays, retirements, any kind of celebration, even wakes. We may not have a frosted cake at wakes, but oftentimes we have some sort of confection. And so I was making these still lives alluding to, but not overtly alluding to, transition and life's major milestones. When I finally had a successful pregnancy, I wanted to celebrate that in the same way that I wanted to make a sister piece to to that indulgence series, which was all, alluding to the miscarriages, and that's what this is about, and the celebration of my first child. Um, so again, there's symbolism in all of these, like the magic 8 ball over in the left. I don't know if you guys had this toy as children, but you'd shake it up, you'd ask it a question, you shake it up, and you turn it over, and different answers. It would give you different answers. Little words were written and kind of answer your questions to life's mysteries. So the idea of the 8 ball is sort of fate and chance. My baby was born, and so of course I had to make lots of paintings of her. Now I use a composite way of constructing my images. So a lot of times I'm using photographs, working from life, working from studies that I've done from life, and then also working from imagination. And so the images that you've seen up to this point are, with exception of just the cake paintings, any painting you've seen up to this point with figures were all made with composite ways of putting things together. I'll use mannequins. So for instance, this is me squatting in a mirror or looking back at myself in a mirror, and this is my daughter, but I used a mannequin to hold her place. This image is one that I'm working on now. I made it several years ago, but I decided that I didn't like the dog in the foreground, and I had this other idea for it. So I made it several years ago, probably 10 years ago, and I put it up in my racks and brought it back down and started busting back into it. And I wanted this to be about something different. And I had this idea of my daughter sleeping in the foreground and my son in the background. And I wanted to get rid of, if you can look down here in the lower corner, I wanted to get rid of this shadow figure in the background. And so I start messing around with this, and my daughter posed in a photograph, and I brought her into the studio to look at the colors in her flesh to try and get the right colors. My son, I'm inventing and also using a mannequin, and the woman in the middle there, I brought in another model and did another study. I didn't like the woman. The woman felt too big to me. So this is still very much in progress. So these are called the uglies. When it's in progress, these images are the uglies, right? So here you can see up in the upper left, that study I'm working from to create this figure here and kind of piecing it all together. Now this is currently up in my studio, and I'm going to show that to you in just a few minutes. And this is the last shot. Again, this is one of the uglies. This isn't done. It's still very much in progress. So I may change colors. I may take out figures. The space may change. The still life on the table up here may change. The light might get turned on. I don't know. I know as I paint. I work through these issues as I paint and sketch. Most recently, I've been also working on a set of still lives about caregiving, not unlike when I was working on the cake paintings as sister pieces to the figurative pieces with cakes in them. Now I'm working on a series about caregiving, which is also what this is alluding to, the narrative. So these are a series of caregiving. I'm, cared for a terminally ill father, caring for my elderly grandparents, caring for my children, and also trying to care for myself, and even to an extent caring for my students, right? So Ms. Massaro cares for you. And you are on her to-do list, and she makes sure that you get the education you need to. So that's also a part of it. This one's called Pacifier, and it alludes to the pacification of all these people I'm delivering care to. You know, when my children are sick, how do I pacify them? When they're upset, when they're nervous, how do I pacify myself? That's the coffee cup. You know, how do I pacify my grandparents when they're not feeling well, or an ill father, or a friend, or a student that's upset about a drawing? So that's what these still lives are about. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to take you around my studio. And so as I do, understand that everything you see in here is in progress. There's a bunch of still life setups, and it's very, very messy, as any good studio should be. I've got a lot of paintings going on all at once. Some paintings back there, none of them are complete. Here's the big one that we were looking at in the slides. And sort of what I'm working from when the figures can't be in here, I have mannequins set up, right? So here's you know, another still life I'm working on about caregiving. And here's the setup on the floor right there. My palette. All right, some more stuff. Okay, so listen. Making art's hard, and there's a lot of challenges, and people will tell you that you can't do it, you're at it, and sometimes you'll feel like that. But you still do it. You do it when you're not inspired, you do it when you are. Biggest challenges early on were people not believing that I could make a profession out of this, or that I should even pursue it. Don't listen to those people. It's not easy, but anything that you love is worth doing and going after. Yeah, you can make it work, but it's a lot of hard work. So be willing to put in the elbow grease. All right. Thank you for listening and visiting me in my studio. Certainly, if you have questions, send them to your teacher and she'll send them to me and I'll get them answered. All right. Thanks, guys.